Hello, everybody. I'm Stephanie.
And I'm Georgianna.
And this is Wholehearted Loving, where we teach you simple tools to grow the muscles you need to be with big feelings and overwhelming sensations in your body.
Whether you have active challenges in your life or relationships, or whether you're just here to learn to be kinder to yourself, we pull out all the little things that make life feel better, the things that give you a sense of hope and direction.
So if you're too hard on yourself or on others,
if you want to feel real, deep connection in your life and relationships,
even if you want to reprogram your inner critic while you're sleeping,
this is a great place to be.
So welcome, and we hope this episode brings you just the tidbit you needed today.
Enjoy the show.
Hello, everybody. Welcome. Today we're going to be talking about when life is lifing and it's overwhelming and there's all these unknowns, how you can find helpful focus within that space. You can find self-reflection prompts for this episode and every episode on our Instagram at Wholehearted Loving, and you can learn more about us and how to practice with us live at wholeheartedloving.com. And let's get started with a body-based self-connection practice.
Okay, so this one came out of nowhere. I don't know where it came out of, and I like it. And I'm going to need Steph's help to describe it to you. You could do this standing or sitting, not while driving, and laying would be interesting. I haven't tried it laying.
We'll be trying that later.
So I feel like I need to make some gentle fists, but I don't know if you would do it the same way, Steph. Yes, fists. Okay, gentle fists.
That feels actually doing it without gentle fists has a very different vibe. Yes. Yeah.
It does. Okay. So gentle fists, and then it's sort of like what? Like imagine if you had your hands on your hips.
Yeah.
But your hands are making fists.
Yeah.
That's a good starting position.
Yeah.
Okay. So maybe just do that. Gentle fists, hands on hips.
Good start.
Good start, right? And if you're sitting, maybe feel your butt on the seat. If you're standing, just noticing your feet on the floor. And then we got to, from here, then what? We're going to bring our fists off our hips to a little bit in front of us. Would you say that?
I bet the song is the only symbol needed for people to know what it is.
What to do. At least in North America, right? Maybe in Europe and Asia too. I don't know. Okay.
It's pretty prolific. But so just see, like for those listening, and if you're watching, you're going to get a real tip because we're going to start doing it. But if you're just listening, see what your body wants to do. You've got your hands on your hips when we start singing this song. Hi ho.
So it'll be my first time. It's off to work. Go. Hi ho. Hi ho. It's just off to work I go.
So wait, it's a very elbow heavy movement, side to side.
Yep.
Right? Like you're elbowing your neighbor or industriously going to work with enthusiasm.
And just notice how this feels and what kind of pace feels good. Right? How high do you want to bring those elbows?
Whoa.
And like, do you allow for movement in the upper torso, or do you want it to be like I'm watching Steph's face. What kind of facial expression do you want to hold? Is it a light, sort of delighted facial expression? Is it serious and stern? And I see Steph has changed the hands.
Oh,
right?
My God. Try that. With the flat palms, it's such a different, now I'm like T-3000 from the Terminator.
I don't remember who that is, but I feel like I'm a fast person.
Yes. Well, and so see, as you're becoming faster, your arms are starting to point more forward, right? We're less hi ho. Like the sideways elbow thing is a very different.
Hi ho is very sideways.
Yeah.
And then when I have flat palms, I go faster and I lean forward a little bit, like I'm running a race.
Yeah. And then I want to go, and it no longer feels like, we're going to work. It's like, I got to get to the end of this race. It's a lot.
So yeah. Okay. Well, the workday is slowly coming to an end. You're about to cross the finish line of your race. Is T-3000, whatever that was? I don't know what that is. Anyways, just notice how it was to have gone on a little journey.
Wow.
Right? What kind of energy did you create for yourself?
And if you add just a little swagger, so if you slow it down, it becomes like Latin dancey feelings. Put your hand on your belly, got your elbows coming out.
Oh yeah, that is right.
Yeah, groovy. Wow.
Look at that. 3 in 1.
There's always so much to discover. These subtle movements cause so much effect. They are causal, these movements we can choose at any moment.
Well, what's really nice is, we try to bring you a different body connection practice every time. And we don't always know what that's going to be. And I have really enjoyed just feeling what comes up. Did you just drink something yucky? Your face says something is yucky. Okay.
That is a clump of soluble fiber is what that is.
Gross. Okay. Yucky. So anyways, what just came was this motion, this bent arms, closed fists, elbows going side to side. And immediately, it was the hi ho, that song that fits with it. And I have no idea where it came from, but it's just the joy of seeing that self-connection can come in the most simple and most ridiculous things.
Mm-hmm.
And I was on a call this week, I think, and someone was saying, I sort of forget to do self-connection practices. And then sometimes I convince myself I don't have time for it. And we had a really neat chat about what can be self-connection. And, we were talking about choosing which cup you drink your tea in can be a form of self-connection. Noticing how it feels, noticing what feels better, what your preferences are. Right? Noticing whether you're going to sit on the couch or on the chair can be a self-connection practice. Do you want to move your elbows with your fists closed, with your palms open, going slow, going fast? That's all connection to self, meaning it's a moment where I'm paying attention to me and I'm noticing what's happening in my body and I'm having more awareness of what my preferences are.
Yes.
To me, that's self-connection.
It's huge. And that also is causal. At a metaphysical level, what you're describing is choosing the thing that feels good in the moment. You're choosing the frequency of the thing you want to vibe with, right? And whatever you're in contact with, literally or mentally or emotionally, you're vibing with, and you're changing this frequency. So, if your body wants to sit on a specific chair, trust that and see what comes next. And
so sometimes I know the vibe I want. And I have some options of how to create that vibe, but sometimes I don't know. Sometimes I'm I don't know why the elbows want to go like this, but they're going like this.
Yeah.
But what's cool is what I notice is they create a vibe, and they often create a vibe that's different than the vibe I was just in.
Yes.
And I after the fact, well, during also, but especially after the fact, just bringing some awareness to that. What vibe did I just create? And how cool is it to realize I can create a vibe and shift into a different vibe?
Right.
And do I want to stay in that new vibe, or do I want to go back to the old one, or do I want to try something different? Right. It's recognizing I have so much choice and agency in impacting how I feel in any given moment. And often we'll do these with people, and they'll report that they feel better or lighter or more grounded or a little bit more okay with whatever's going on with their life. And we always like to highlight, and we changed nothing about your life circumstances. We didn't change any of the things.
Right.
And yet here you are feeling better or different.
Yeah. I think of that as co-regulating with the universe.
Mm-hmm.
And it can also be really playful and fun, and for me, I live alone. And so I don't have a partner to co-regulate with. I have a very unsnuggly cat where there's no co-regulating going on. But I can play in this way with the universe and feel connected. And so I don't know if you play games with yourself, if you race with yourself. Sometimes I'm in the Amazing Race, on my own, at the grocery store.
I have not played that game with myself. No.
It's fun. Yeah. We are playing with the universe if you need a buddy. But try leaving your house. If you have to go, whatever it is, to the grocery store, or even just going to your car, try it with the hi ho elbows, or try it with the straight palms, front facing running robot vibe, and notice the difference in energy. That it really changes everything. And these, as much of what we talk about, are optional things you can employ anytime.
Yes, I love this. Okay, so I do play games now that I hear you talk. So I might have not called them games, but they are games. And I walk to the car sometimes like the queen.
Oh,
yes. Because there's something about being regal and upright and like, I don't know. There's something about that energy that is so not the energy I grew up in my family of origin. Like, you're not supposed to be the center of attention. You're not supposed to, take up space. None of those things. You're not supposed to walk around with this aura of confidence.
Yeah.
Like, you're supposed to be humble and like, stay out of the spotlight. Very different than queen energy.
Yeah.
And so I remember when I wanted to get my system more used to different ways of holding myself, I was like, well, let's just pretend to be the queen while I walk from the elevator door to the car, right? Nobody knows what the heck is going on, right? And, but I feel different.
Yeah.
I feel different during that walk. I feel different as I'm in the car. And it gives my system a little bit of time embodying something. I'm not going to just say different, but what was in my family of origin conditioned either explicitly or implicitly as dangerous and wrong.
Yeah.
But I've now given myself a little moment as the queen, and I didn't die, and it was okay. And I sort of actually like that feeling.
Yeah. When you said that, I died of joy because I feel like I've seen this happening. There's definitely a walk that you have. And it's not all the time walk, it's specific moment walks that when you tell me, and this is Queen Elizabeth you're talking about specifically?
Well, I don't know if it's Queen Elizabeth, but like, because Queen Elizabeth has a very different vibe to me than like, feel like Beyonce, and her queen energy.
Yeah.
Right? It's just different. But yeah.
Amazing. Well, I feel like I've seen some combination of the two. It's like, yeah, it's very regal. Sometimes you just turn on the regal and it's like you can see it from 100 miles away.
And it's fun, right?
Yeah.
And so I want to touch on this thing about fun and playful. So I was working with a couple recently, and I'm learning more about them. And I'm learning that, one of them is quite playful and fun and sort of goes that way as their default to cope too. Mm. And the other one is sort of like this, I got a zest for life kind of person in general, right? And together they're going through some stuff and they're trying to figure their way out. And I find that anytime, whether you're on your own or you're in a relationship and you're trying to figure stuff out, we tend to be, there's a vibe to that. There's an energy to that when you're talking about the things that are not going well. And we tend to be serious, you know? And I just had this, I don't know, gut feeling. And of course, I always check with people, like if they're open, and I also sort of check my senses of like, do I think we can transition into a bit of a different energy? Would that be okay? Or would that be really jarring? And so I check for permission. But I was just curious. I'm like, I wonder what it might be like for them to come into a playful moment together, even though there's like some stuff that's unknown or there's some tension and stuff to figure out. I'm like, these are two people who generally have access in other areas of their life to be quite upbeat and have a certain vibe. Like, what would it be like for them together in this moment to share in a bit of that vibe while we're trying to work on some of these like heavier, more serious things? And I suggested it, and they were open. And like immediately it brought laughs. And like immediately they connected with each other in a way that wasn't happening just prior to that, although they were connected, right? And it reminds me of like, especially if you do already have access to a fun, light, silly vibe. Some of us still need to grow that muscle. I really needed to grow that muscle. But like, if you have that, what I find is, well, a lot of people don't realize that they can bring that into harder moments. And it changes something up completely. And then it gives you something, or gives you collectively something, and you have a different energy to work with as you try to solve this other thing that you're working on.
Yeah. It's the energy of this is solvable, right? Like, it's like this problem isn't the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I really like that. This problem isn't the whole thing, and reminds me of this other couple I was working with recently, where that's what we tried to practice, is this problem isn't the whole thing. There's some other energy here right now too.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden things shift.
Yeah.
People feel a little bit more hopeful, right? When they orient to something else. So there we are orienting to a little bit of fun and quirkiness and the problem. With these other people, we're orienting to, or actually, I think same people, we're orienting to, I really do like you as a person. And we're having some hard times. So orienting to both of those things.
Yeah.
With these other people I was working with, it was orienting to, I'm turning towards you in this moment, right? Physically, emotionally, energetically. And there's still stuff we don't see eye to eye on.
Yeah.
Right? Like the duality, like both of those are true. So sort of like, we're going to come on a podcast. We're going to create an episode for you. We're going to talk about some things that are serious and helpful. And there's some hi-ho energy.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Yes.
This is an interesting one for me personally, because and I think this has probably shifted. I know it's shifted a lot over the last few years, but my emotions were so big and so untended to previously that when something was wrong, that energy was huge, right? And my mind was not diverting from the problem. I had no tools. But that jokey, fun part was always available, but to the regular observer, you wouldn't know that, right? You wouldn't think I was ready to have any fun at all, but I was always ready to have fun. And often my ready to have fun might look like very dry, so you'd have to know me or understand me or not be, projecting onto me in an emotional state to know that that was there and that that's what it was, and that I could still sound really gloomy and be really heavy, but also like be making a joke.
So what is that like for you now?
Well, I can see the bigger picture that I couldn't see before. Definitely my feelings are moments in time and they're not the end of the story. Yeah.
I'm going to pin that, my feelings are a moment in time and not the end of the story, because I think that's going to be another episode that I have an idea for.
I love it. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, this episode, so we're kind of talking about it already, right? Shifting focus. But specifically, you wanted to talk about, you had mentioned you had a client who was feeling overwhelmed with all the unknowns and uncertainty of life.
Yeah. So I actually have 3 clients in mind. Let me just sit with that for a sec. Okay. Yeah. So I see often, and I think we can all relate, like each of us, to this feeling of overwhelm that we get when you're trying to think about all the things you don't have answers for yet. And that could be big. It could be, am I changing careers? Am I staying in this relationship? Where am I going to live? Like, sometimes for some people, some of the people I'm working with, all 3 or 4 of those things are up in the air at the same time. And it can be very overwhelming and jarring and sort of unsettling to have so many unknowns in your life at one time. For some people, it's just one area of their life that has an unknown, but maybe has many unknowns. And I see people focus on all the unknowns. They talk about all the unknowns. I don't know where I'm going to live. I don't know what job I'm going to have. I don't know if my husband's going to have a job next week. I don't know where we're going to live. And that's going to be where we choose to live is going to be connected to where they choose to work. And what should we do? And just hearing people speak to each part that's an unknown, I can feel the activation level growing even within me, right? And I can sense it growing in them. And so we've been practicing noticing how it feels in the body to keep widening the focus to all the things that are unknown. Mm. And I think that's something great to practice. What we're usually very good at is talking about or ruminating about all the things we do not know yet. What we don't tend to do is practice in that moment. Actually, let me backtrack. We also tend to know how to do feeling completely overwhelmed by the sensations in our body. I would love for us to practice making that smaller and pairing them together. Meaning, can I notice what happens in my body when I start going to, oh my God, where am I going to live? And I don't know which neighborhood, and like, where will I work? And like, I hate working for people. Like, should I actually be self-employed? Like, practice naming all your worries and then notice how it feels in your body just for a moment.
No way.
Right? It's not something we've been taught to do. We sort of either do one or the other. And then we also think that's the end. Like, that's my life. I've either got to sit with a brain full of all these unknowns or a body full of yucky sensations. And that's my life right now because I'm in that season of life where I don't know anything.
Yeah.
And that's really taxing and unpleasant to live in that energy. And that's not a vibe I want to live in.
No.
No. It's not a vibe I want to continue to grow. But that's what our old patterning has us do, right? Or we're so sick of it and it's so overwhelming, we shut down or we disassociate or we completely distract ourselves, right?
Yeah. Can I say something about this unknown that you're mentioning? Because the way we think about the unknown is so silly and it's really nonsense when we start examining it. So we're literally talking about uncertainty and things we can't know. And in our minds, we're trying to categorize that impossible unknown thing into a bunch of categories that we know, right? We're talking with so much certainty about our uncertainty. We know that it contains this number of worries and these exact solutions that for some reason aren't happening right now, right? We're carving this path that we're actively uncomfortable with and that doesn't feel good to us. And that is the option we're creating for ourselves.
That's the vibe we're creating.
Yeah. There's got to be some other options, right?
Yes. So another option is to name some of those things that you're worried about or some of the unknowns and just take a moment to feel in the body how it feels. And there's no judging it. It's not wrong if it doesn't feel nice. If it feels great, fantastic. But I like to ask people, okay, how does it feel? What do you notice? And what now? Would you like to grow that feeling? Or would you like to experience a different sensation or feeling? They're like, oh, I don't think I want to grow that feeling right now. Like, okay, well then what would you like to shift your focus to now? How would you like to narrow it a little bit, narrow your focus a little bit? And some people will really narrow too. I really just want to feel my butt on the seat and have a moment of quiet. And then we'll check in again. Okay, you went from really wide, you oriented to really wide, a lot of the unknowns to zoop, or does it come in and go really small and really focused to, I'm just going to feel my butt on the seat and I'm going to notice my breath. I actually did this with someone this morning and they said, oh, I feel sort of peaceful. Like, okay, from this peaceful place, what do you want to do now? Right? It's like a choose your own adventure. What do you want to do now? What do you want to experience more of now? I said, would you like to stay in this place a little longer? Do you want to start orienting to a little wider? Because she was telling me originally, I don't know where I'm going to live. I need to leave my home at the end of the month. I don't know if I'm going to stay in the country. I don't really know what I'm going to do career-wise. I'm uncertain about what's happening in my relationship. So there's a lot of things that are up in the air. But when she was telling me about all that, and we sat with, okay, how does that feel? She's like, it doesn't feel good. And sometimes things that don't feel good, it's important for us to hang there a little longer. Right? So I'm not talking about anytime you notice something doesn't feel good, let's create the opposite and move away from that. But I wanted to help her see that she had choice, and that wherever she took her focus to next was either going to grow the feeling she was having already, or is going to change the feeling a little bit. And she had decided, no, actually, I think I'd like to narrow the focus back to some stillness. Like, okay. So we did that. And then from stillness, she's like, I think I actually want to stay here a little longer. Great. How many of us are that intentional about curating our feeling experience?
Right.
Right. But when I pointed out to her, hey, do you realize you are making these choices right now, and you are deciding where you're placing your focus, and that's shifting how you're feeling? Like, what is it like to notice that you have that much agency? She's like, oh, that actually feels really good. It feels good. And she's like, it feels good to know that when I want to, I can widen the lens and focus on, where am I going to live after this month? Or do I want to stay in this country or not? Or how do I feel in my relationship? But I don't have to let them all stir like a tornado all at once.
Yeah. Yeah. So the tornado part, like, there's the practical, tangible truths of things like, I need to find a place to live. And there's going to be some actual limitations there. Like, especially say if you've got kids and you want to be in a school catchment, something like that. You don't want to leave, you know? That's not the kind of thing where everybody has every single option known to humanity. Right. But one of the things that we do when we widen our lens is that we're just creating a huge catch-all container of all of our limiting beliefs, right? We're not going like, here's this unknown, here's this uncertainty. Every option, which by the way would be overwhelming, exists in here. I can dream big in here. You know, it's just like we're going into this vat of our limiting beliefs and choosing from among them. We're looking at probabilities instead of possibilities. So that was a really helpful phrase for me to think about the unknown, which I find, of course, overwhelming. But it feels a lot more practicable and like welcoming and exciting if I think about possibilities instead of likelihoods based on my past and current science, you know?
And my old limiting beliefs, right? And the old limiting beliefs that were passed down from generation to generation. I want to add more on this too. I think it's important about possibility. Because I was someone who was scared and overwhelmed by the unknown for much of my life. And I remember doing some personal growth work where the phrase that they used was imagine possibility. And that was my first sort of like dipping a toe in that. I'm like, okay. And then they said something else that I don't know that I quite understood at the time, but it became clear over time, which is, and it's so true, it's only in the unknown lies possibility. Something like that. Because if you already know it, like there's not much else possible. You already know the outcome, right? But in the unknown, so many things are possible. And growing your ability to be with a little bit of discomfort, learning how to be aware of how you feel and what you need and give that to yourself so you know you can have your own back so that no matter what happens, you know you'll be okay. And growing this different relationship with possibility. I think all of those things support us in being with the ever-changing things in life.
They do.
Right?
And they usher in the synthesis of whatever will actually become, right? Like the thing that emerges is never the thing we imagined, right? The problem we have and the solution we imagine, that's not a direct path, right? Whatever ends up happening will be a synthesis of the problem, the solution, the possible, the limitations. and it's off
I'm
to
moving
work we go.
Yeah, because it's like, oh, it's got that hi ho, it's off to work we go energy because I don't know what the path is going to look like. I know that, and like this is okay. I'd love to use this example. A couple years ago, my kids and I, we had to leave the place that we were living in. Right, we had enough notice, but still, in the area that we live, it's very hard to find housing, and that's at some affordable price. And I oscillated at that time between the holy crap, where are we going to live? Like, how are we going to find some place to live? And the yucky, overwhelming sensations that created. So that was orienting really wide of where are we going to live? Can we afford it? Will it be close to the schools? Will it be close to their dad? Will it be close to their sports? Oh my gosh. Right. And, are we going to live? I really like living in an apartment. I feel better there than in a big house. I feel better there than in a basement. I feel better there than in like a wood building. I like being on the 30th floor in a concrete building. But because I had all those preferences also, I was like, what does that mean? Where are we going to live? Do I need to live in a basement now? And I don't really want to live in a basement and I need the bright lights. And do I want to live in a house, but like it's off in the middle of the woods? And oh my gosh, if a bear comes at night, like those were actually my thoughts in my brain when I orient wide. And then because I've been doing this work, I'm like, that doesn't feel so good. I don't want to create more of that feeling. And so I started orienting narrower too. Okay, well, I would like it to be closer to their schools, close to their schools. I would like one part to be, it needs to be a concrete building for me. I work at home. I don't like to think and worry about making noise for other people or I'm making noise and annoying them. We travel to the arena multiple times a day, all year round because of sports. I knew there was a certain area that if I want to live in a concrete building, I could widen it. But it would mean a lot of traffic driving to this arena. So I narrowed it. I'm like, I need it to be within this radius and that radius. And all of a sudden I'm like, okay, that feels a little bit better. I know it's going to be a concrete tower, this radius, so that we're close to schools and close to the arena. And all of a sudden I knew there's 2 places for me to look, 2 areas. I'm like, oh, that feels a lot easier. And it wasn't all these other things. It was like, just focus on looking for concrete buildings within this area.
Yeah.
And then if it turns out I really can't find something, maybe I widen the lens again. But I'm not at that point yet. Right. And then I was like, oh my gosh, but what if I can't afford something? I'm sort of really narrowed my options down, right? Because then our brain does that as well. And then one of my friends reminds me of this. And every time she reminds me of this is a real narrowing again. What it does in my body is like, okay, you're right. And what she reminds me of is, none of your friends are going to let you and your children live on the street. Whatever happens, it's not going to happen. Right. And I'm in that privileged situation where I have that network of people where I know actually that's a certain. So when I narrow to the certainty of this known fact that none of my friends would let me live on the street, all of a sudden life feels better. The moment feels better and life feels better.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm going from all these unknowns to like, and what is the known?
And
this is for sure a known that I can orient to.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, okay. And then from that place of knowing no matter what happens, I will not be on the street. Then I'm like, well, in that case, I feel okay enough to start looking at what my options are. Right. But if I'm oriented wide to all these unknowns and feeling completely activated and dysregulated, and then I'm trying to figure out the answers to my life, that's hard.
Yeah, that is
That's
hard.
more taxing than it needs to be.
Yeah. And I love what you said about, I noticed that this, the swirl is starting to happen. And because I've done this work, I know, I don't want to feel that way, in your mind. changes and your wiring changes. And there's like a critical mass where once you've been accumulating these tiny skills, eventually that becomes like predominantly your life.
Yeah.
And what this is making me think of, I'm sure you've seen the meme. I'm sure everyone's seen the meme of a caterpillar becoming a butterfly, the process of that, the cocoon, and it has to struggle to get out. It turns into, so it goes from being a caterpillar to like a bag of slop that's just goo, and then it forms a structure and has to fight to get out. That goo phase is so neat scientifically because there's all these cells that I might get the name wrong, but I think they're called imaginal cells because they don't know what they're going to be yet. They're programmed to like determine what they're going to become. And once there's a critical mass there, once a bunch of them have decided, I don't know what the scientific term is, what cells they're going to be, other cells will gravitate towards them. More cells will turn in that direction, right? So we're doing that with ourselves when we're programming our minds in these new, kinder, more connected ways. And eventually that comes naturally, right? Like when I go to freak out in my mind, which of course your mind will still do that, but you develop a different response, right? You develop a different set of possibilities.
And it really does start with, hey, can you feel your hands right now if you give them a squeeze? Right? That's a narrowing the focus. If you're like listening to stuff and you're like, oh my God, but how? But how? That's us orienting wide again, right? There's nothing wrong with orienting wide, but notice that if you hang out that, yeah, I hear you say that, but how? Notice how that feels in the body. And then notice how it feels in the body to look at your hands right now and give them a squeeze. And maybe feel your butt on the chair. And we're not looking for, oh, all of a sudden I feel Zen peace, but we're noticing what is it like to narrow the focus a little bit just for a moment, right? And as you build that muscle to be able to feel your hands as you squeeze them, that naturally will unfold into your but how, like it'll answer those questions over time. The how becomes obvious. It just, you don't have to believe it yet even, but it does happen. And I would really like to speak to how most of us, I think already, and I don't know the science of it, but I actually think unless there's some medical thing going on with us, we generally already are wired to do this. I think it's a survival response. But I would like to remind us that I don't think we have to wait until tragedy happens to enlist this tool, which is actually, yeah, it happens all the time. Okay. So a couple years ago, our family went through something really traumatic, hard, unexpected. And there's all these questions your brain could go to of how are we going to navigate this? How is this going to impact the children? Am I going to be okay? What's going to happen in my future? And hanging out there would not have felt good, but it would have made sense that we spend some time there, that our brain pulls us to that place, and it would feel scary and it would feel overwhelming. And something in me, I think because of the significance of the tragedy, like how big the hard thing was, I just knew, you know what? I just need to be able to shower, or I just need to be able to get out of bed. Like that is the goal for the day. Right? And I naturally I narrowed my focus. That's what I was doing. I'm like, I don't have capacity actually. It's not even I'm not going to. I don't have capacity to try to figure out the whole way forward right now.
Yeah.
All I know is I need to get in the shower. And then after that, I widened the lens a little bit to all I know is I need to get dressed. Widen the lens a little bit more. All I know is I need to go wake up my children. And you slowly widen to where you have capacity to widen, and then you narrow it again to tomorrow again. All I'm narrowing to, I don't know what tomorrow is going to bring, but I know that it's important to me to get out of bed. So I'm going to do that. And then I'll let whatever things unfold as they unfold. And I think that's how a lot of us, if we look back at the things we've overcome, is you did some version of that. Like, I can't stay in the oriented to all the unknowns. I have to just narrow the focus to something I can handle in this moment right now.
Yeah.
And then I'll do the next thing and then do the next thing. And over time, you realize, hey, I got through that hard time. And I like to suggest that we don't have to wait until it gets that hard and overwhelming. And we don't have to assume that tool is only available to us under the most dire of circumstances. We can, in daily life, actually practice choosing, do I want to orient, to the wider unknowns, or do I want to orient to the more narrow knowns of the moment?
Yeah.
What helps me most in this moment?
In a way, you kind of just described the, I feel like calling it like the hysteria of every day, when you've got space and time to think about every single possibility. That's like a place of privilege in a way, when tragedy happens and somebody dies and your ability and awareness shrinks to, I think of it as having one byte of bandwidth. You can do exactly one single thing. And that feels like the most, like, in modern day times, physiologically helpful. Like, I don't need bears and tigers aren't chasing me. The adrenaline is nice if I need it, but this one is really helpful. And as you say, you don't need the tragedy to happen, right? From this place of privilege of being able to conceive of all of the horrific things that might happen, you can choose that moment to shrink your focus to something that's helpful.
This reminds me actually, like, of the beauty of the human and of nature and all the things. Is like, our bodies physiologically are wired to do this, right? In survival, like, I don't know how I'm going to describe it all, but like the basic layman's version is, if you need to survive, right? I believe all your blood sort of draws inward and makes sure that your heart can pump. But, other functions start shutting down a little bit to make sure that the overall main important functions stay intact, right? Your limbs, I don't know, is this why your limbs, your hands and feet go cold? And right? Yeah. Our bodies know to do that, to conserve and to narrow instead of widen. But you don't want to stay in narrow forever. Like, if your limbs were never warm, that would be a problem.
Yeah.
Right. And I see that in nature, in how I have not been a very skilled plant nurturer in my life, where when I forget to water them, they're still alive, but they're not plump and thriving, but they're hanging on. And it's like, even the plant knows, narrow the focus. We just got to hang on until 3 weeks from now, when all of a sudden she remembers again that we need water. And then we can sort of plump up again.
Yeah.
Right. So it's happening all around us. This idea of, like, just focusing on what's necessary in the moment, making it small if you need to, and growing it.
Yeah.
Right.
This is the kind of thing, when that, obviously, I don't like it at all when somebody that I love dies. Obviously. And I don't think I'd feel this way today, but when I lived in that hysterical monkey mind space, there was a tangible relief. That one byte of bandwidth state is a relief, from the everyday clatter that was happening in my mind. And the only time I was able to experience that relief was when something horrible had happened and everything shut down,
Yes, because it's almost like, in our world, in our society, we've been programmed to believe that the only time I have permission to narrow that focus down to just the one bite is in tragedy.
Yeah.
Or in the aftermath of tragedy. Like, but why? Like,
that's
why do we only have permission to narrow the focus in those circumstances? Right. Can I share a real practical experience with this? Happened very recently. So I told you that one of my kids was in a mountain biking accident, right? He's okay. He's fine. But he flew off his bike, and it required that unexpectedly I needed to take him to the ER to get things checked out. So we do that. Well, actually, let me walk you through. Initially, it's like, his friends called me, like, he's on an accident. I'm like, okay, my mind goes to, what kind of accident? What do you mean? Do we need to call 911? Like, what's the status of things? So it's important in that moment to go a bit wide.
Yeah.
Right. Because I don't want to just.
I have to pause you because already you've done something brilliant with your mind. You've used it to immediately start asking questions instead of making horrible assumptions about what might have happened. Yeah. Is that right?
That's true. That's right. Yeah. Because I heard accident and I'm like, the next thing was, okay, I need more information.
Yeah.
Like, what kind of accident? Like, is he breathing? Is he alive? Like, does he have a head injury or a spinal injury? Like, do we need to call 911? And they're like, no, we don't need to call 911. He's okay, but he hit his head. Right. I'm like, okay. So I said, so this is I should come pick him up kind of accident. And they said, yes. I'm like, okay. I'm like, okay, then let's orient to that. Right. But then my mind goes to, oh, I pick him up. And then are we going to the ER? What am I going to do with my other kid? Does he need to eat dinner? Like, I'm working. Do I shut everything down? Like, it's going wide. Right.
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, what do I need? I need to turn everything off in this house so it doesn't light on fire if I'm gone. Turn all, like the basic things. Make sure things are turned off. Make sure water is turned off. Make sure I have my keys and my phone. Like, beyond that, if I forget something, it doesn't really matter. Right. So again, narrow focus.
Has this always been a natural state? Like, I'm imagining myself and my mother, and I know billions of other people. You'd get that call, your son's been in an accident, and I can feel the sensation. It's like grains of energy going up my eyes into the middle of my brain where an explosion of catastrophe happens. And there's nowhere in there that's like, make sure you don't burn the house down. It's just like, everything has gone horribly wrong. Run to the solution. Bypass everything. Don't turn off the water. Don't even close the door. Immediate and complete.
I think I've practiced a lot.
Right.
I think because I know how yucky it feels to be in complete overwhelm.
Yeah.
And that I don't make good decisions in that place.
Yeah.
And so that I think
that's important. So you can learn and grow that skill, right? We don't have to be a slave to our hysterical monkey mind. You
don't have to be born with it.
Yeah.
This skill. And I definitely didn't inherit it from my family of origin, because in my family of origin, like, I got to say my dad is a great problem solver, but like also inherited a lot of fear coming from my mom. Yeah. Right. So if I only I could just as easily live in fear brain.
Yeah.
Right. But I know how yucky that feels. And I know that that's not necessary. Like, if I'm willing to practice, I can get better at this thing of widening and narrowing, and even noticing that my brain is starting to swirl, right? Because I noticed, okay, grab the things you need, go. And then I was like, there was enough narrowing, which is actually cool, to then be like, what next? That's a really important 2 words to be able to have what next. Okay. So what next was, I'm like, well, I knew already that my other kid was safe in a place, so I didn't have to worry about him. What next was what to do with his bike. And I know, like, it's a bike, it's just a material thing, but I know it means a lot to my kid. I know it's really expensive. I know we don't want to just leave it laying there. So I was like, I need to call a friend to see if they can figure out the bike. And this is new to me, because my old self would have been like, I have to figure out the bike. Yeah. I got to somehow dismantle it, shove it in my car, and drive my kid to the ER at the same time.
Right.
Right. And I was like, no, I'm just going to call a friend and say, hey, can you guys pick up the bike? And she said, no, actually, we can't. She said, I can take your kid, though, your other kid. Like, great. I need to focus on the bike first. I'll call you back about the kid. Right. But so there's like this constant widening. And then, like, I can't talk about the other kid right now yet. I need to focus on figuring out the bike is the next thing to figure out. Yeah. And then the bike got figured out. Yeah. And then it was the next thing. Okay. So anyways, fast forward a little bit. I'm sitting at the ER with my kid, and my brain goes wide again. I have a 7 a.m. client tomorrow. And then I have a group call at 12 or 12:30. No, 10. Group call at 10:30. Then I have some more clients all day long. Do I cancel them all? Am I going to be exhausted? Can I be present with them? And then all the questions happen. And then it's like, I don't know what I should do. And then also, does my kid need breakfast? What about is the other kid fine? Will this kid go to school? Is he going to go to lacrosse tomorrow? And like the brain does all the things. I'm like, zoop, we need to come narrow again. Which was, I think, I'm like, I don't need to decide that right now. I don't need to decide any of those things right now. That was the narrow I could come to. Let's just sit with the kid in the ER and make sure he's fine and trust that when things feel a little bit more settled, I'll have a little bit more clarity and I can widen the lens again to, answer some of those questions or to sit with some of those questions.
Yeah.
And sure enough, it happened that I'm like, nope, I can still do the clients. And if for some reason I wake up in the morning and I really feel like I can't, I can do something about that.
Yeah.
Right. And looking back, this was actually just yesterday. I'm like, the day went remarkably well. And I'd like to think that part of it has to do with me not stressing out before the day even came with all the possibilities and all the unknowns.
Yeah.
And it's like, just deal with one thing at a time.
Yeah.
Make one decision that you can make right now and leave it at that.
Yeah.
And
I think there's some trust in that emergence as well that can be cultivated. Like one of the ways we manage anxiety and overwhelm is to try to control every detail we can and try to project that into the future, right? So when you're looking at what happens the next day, what should I do? That time space, I'm going to call it, hasn't emerged yet, right? We're just using our brains to try to not feel uncomfortable in this moment. And that's
using our brains to try to not feel uncomfortable in this moment by using our old tools that create an discomfort that I know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. To try to create rigid future outcomes, for things that don't exist. Yeah.
And the interesting thing is when you look back at a hard time in your life and all of the unknowns. And I'm looking back at, say, yesterday and all the things I was sitting in the ER questioning and thinking about and having no answer for yet. If I look now in hindsight, every one of those questions got answered to a satisfactory degree. Now that I'm on the other side. But it was because of this. I was willing, like you said, to trust that the moment to address them will emerge.
Yes.
And I don't have to make 34 decisions at one time.
Yeah.
And I don't have to sit with the knowing that there's 34 unmade decisions right now. And let's swim in that energy. I don't have to do that.
What a twilight zone that is the tool we've developed instead of feel your butt, Yeah. Wild.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Feel your butt. And I got to delight in this really sweet baby at the hospital.
Oh, good.
And I was like, that's what I'm going to orient to right now. The fact that we're here for endless hours, that my kid is okay enough that I'm not worried about his life. I just want to check, whether he's got some head stuff going on or whatever. And it's very sweet to orient to this sweet little baby boy who's sitting across from me. That's what it felt nice to orient to narrow my focus to those two things. My one kid is okay enough that, hasn't broken things and he's conscious. No critical injuries. My other kid is safe. And there's a sweet little boy in front of me. When I oriented to those things, I feel way better.
Yeah.
But when I'm like, let's not orient to any of those three things, because that's what we do. We typically then don't orient to any of the good feeling things. Let me just orient to all the not good feeling things.
Yeah, that's the way. And we just need a little suggestion, right? Like I love the two contracts thing. So you're going to be sitting in this ER for the next 3 hours. You've got two options. You can orient to all the horrific possibilities that may or may not come to fruition. Or
would you like to sign for this?
Yeah, right? Which one? If we were given that option, it would be clear, but it's not clear till that becomes part of our reality that, these things are possible and can be different than we've experienced so far.
Yeah. And that I can be the creator of that option for myself. Like, what?
Yay!
Okay. Yes. So we want you to have a more easeful life because life is going to have hard things happen along the way.
Yeah.
And we want you to remember that you deserve to have easeful moments. It's possible to have easeful moments, and it's just a skill. And you've built many skills in your lifetime already.
Yeah, you
right?
can do
That's
it.
the thing. You can do this thing. And talking to people this week, they're like, I can do this thing. That feels really good to know that it's just a skill.
Yeah. And it's very much like the put your mask on before the baby's in the airplane, you know, for the invested caregiver types among us. Know that doing this for yourself is going to have wonderful ripple effects for all the people you are in service to. So it's not selfish or self-centered or egotistical to spend time feeling your hands and feeling your butt and taking these moments to connect with yourself. It's in service to something much greater.
Yeah. And, hearing you say that, it's a good reminder that really my willingness to practice regulating myself in just the simplest of ways of maybe it's hi-hoing because that feels good for my body, or it's giving my hands a squeeze or feeling my butt on the chair. But you're saying it has a ripple effect. I'm thinking that if I was operating from my tornado self, and this is not about shaming us when we operate in our tornado selves. We all do that sometimes. But I was thinking of what impact does it have on my kid in the ER? And what impact does it have on my kid who's staying at a friend's house? When I can narrow my focus to this kid is not critically injured, my other kid is safe, and there's a sweet baby across from me, I bring a certain energy to that experience, right? I am not losing my mind, freaking my one kid out that maybe he's going to die or whatever. I'm not in that tornado space of what the heck were you thinking trying to go off that jump and all this stuff, which it's easy to do as a concerned parent. I'm not bringing such a charge to the moment, the experience that he's logging in his mind. You know what? Next time I'm not going to tell my mom. Right? I was so impressed that these 14, 15-year-old boys called me. He said he had an accident and probably he's okay, but probably needs to be checked out. Because I'm thinking, man, I remember a time where I wouldn't tell my parents anything because they'd lose their minds.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm really relieved. And that was another thing I chose to orient to at the ER. I said, I'm really relieved that my kid has friends and they all feel like they don't have to hide things like this, that they can tell an adult, and an adult can be part of that decision making and assessment of, does this require us to take it more seriously, right? Because I also know that depending on the energy we bring to a situation, not that we can control everything and how people behave, but it's going to impact whether people feel comfortable and want to share openly with us.
Yeah, that's huge.
So it has a lot of ripple effect. Your willingness and ability to just practice building this skill, one little thing at a time, is not only going to affect your life, but it's going to affect the people around you and the relationships you have with people.
Yeah. Thanks, Gigi.
Yeah, imagine if we were just tornadoes all the time.
Ooh. I can imagine very well. Yes, it was a tornado life before.
Right? And it's hard to be friends and support someone who's 24/7 in a tornado.
Yeah.
And
I didn't realize that. I thought I could just fix the tornado.
Right. And again, it's not shaming and blaming the tornado energy that we all have the ability to carry and live in sometimes. It's just a reminder that you could have a more peaceful life. The waters can be calmer.
Yeah. Optional
Right?
tornadoes. Sounds better than a necessary, an inevitable tornado.
Yes.
Yeah.
And even just optional how long the tornado lasts for.
Yeah.
And that's something I'm really proud of myself for, is I've gotten better. And I hear this from clients too. They're like, I've gotten better at not growing that yucky feeling when it's unnecessary. I've gotten better at like coming out of it more quickly.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. And you've gotten better because it's a skill.
Next to the bonfire instead of adding logs. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
I only have a few minutes left, so we've got to wrap it up.
Okay.
Is there anything else you wanted to say about this before we do a closing practice?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we hi-hoed and we T3000. How might we close?
Oh, wax on, wax off.
Yes.
Again, that was super emergent. It just came.
Yeah.
Right? So wax on, wax off from the Karate Kid. Right. How would you describe this if you do not understand the Karate Kid reference?
We have our palms flat out in front of us and we are making big circles with our hands.
Yes. So imagine, like, I guess for me, I'm thinking of like cleaning windows, but in a fun, easeful, playful way, right? That motion, right?
In Tai Chi, this is moving the clouds. Is it, or drawing the clouds?
Yeah, I think in Qigong, it's something to do with the clouds, right? And then like, so at first my palms are facing outward, but as you bring in the cloud analogy, I like to lift my palms sort of up to the sky and move them around. And like, again, like something new emerges. If you hang in the moment, something new comes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And if you hang only in your rigid preconceptions, nothing new ever comes.
Right? Yeah. And then you be like wiping the windows the same way over and over again, which to me feels boring.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So it started with wax on, wax off. It went to tossing the clouds, moving the clouds.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, had a little bit of maybe we're actually finger painting.
Ooh, that's a different vibe.
Yes, but finger painting with my whole palm in the finger paints.
Yeah. I like it.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Thanks, Gigi.
Off to the ferry you go. So it goes hi ho, hi ho. It's off to the ferry you go.
And we have to look up the lyrics. All right. Okay, that's it for this week. Thank you guys for joining us. As always, please do like, follow, and subscribe. And if anything we've said here today has been helpful for you, please share with somebody that you care about. And we'll see you next time.